What happens when privilege collides with perseverance? When a teacher, determined, unshakable, walks into a classroom where her authority is challenged before she even speaks? A sleek black car pulling up to the academy gates. A well-dressed young man steps out, adjusting his cufflinks, smirking as he glances at his Rolex. Inside, a group of students whispers, exchanging knowing glances. This is their world, and then she walks in. At Kingston Academy, tradition isn't just valued, it's the law. For over a century, this school has molded America's future leaders, CEOs, senators, power players, and those who don't fit the mold, they don't last long. Enter Ms. Amelia Carter, a new English teacher who doesn't just teach literature, she challenges minds. But on her first day, she's met with something far beyond the usual first-day jitters. And Mr. Carter celebrates a classroom. The students sit back, arms crossed, eyes sizing her up. And then, one voice cuts through the silence. "Aren't you in the wrong room?" A smirking teenage boy, his voice dripping with arrogance. Meet Ethan Sinclair, the son of a billionaire, practically Kingston royalty. To him, this new teacher? She's an outsider, a diversity hire, a joke. She could fight fire with fire, she could put him in his place. But instead, she does something far more powerful. And neither of them will ever be the same. Miss Carter setting down her books, smiling, not with anger, but with something far more dangerous. Certainty. She isn't going anywhere. What unfolds next is not just a classroom lesson. It's a battle of minds, of power, of change. And by the time this is over, the world Ethan thought he understood, it will never be the same. Heated debates, classroom tension, Ethan glaring at Ms. Carter. Ms. Carter writing something bold on the board, students exchanging glances, a mysterious smirk on her face. The energy is electric. Stay with me, because this isn't just a story about a teacher and a student. This is about power, perspective, and what happens when we finally open our eyes to the truth. Before we dive in, tell me, have you ever judged someone too quickly, only to realize later you were wrong? Drop your answer in the comments below, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get ready, because this story, this one, you don't want to miss. Ethan Sinclair was born to win. It wasn't something he learned, it was something he inherited. His father didn't build an empire, he bought one, and with it he secured his son's future before Ethan even took his first breath. A lavish Sinclair mansion, a dining table long enough to seat a royal family. Ethan sits at one end, swirling a glass of sparkling water while his father, Richard Sinclair, flips through his tablet. Richard, cold, calculated. Straight A's. Except for English. It's just one class, Dad. One class is the difference between acceptance and rejection at Harvard. Between power and irrelevance. That new teacher of yours, Amelia Carter, fix it. Ethan's jaw tightening. His father doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't have to. His words carry weight, and Ethan has spent his entire life obeying them. Back at Kingston Academy, Ms. Carter had expected resistance. She had expected arrogance, but what she hadn't expected was war. The classroom. Ms. Carter stands at the whiteboard, writing bold letters. Power and privilege. Behind her, students shift uncomfortably. Ethan? He leans back, arms crossed, waiting for his moment. So, Ms. Carter says, turning to the class, let's talk about it. Who gets to write history? Who gets to decide what matters? Ethan's smirk widening. This is too easy. People who earned it, he says smoothly. Earned it? Ms. Carter raises an eyebrow. Yeah, Ethan shrugs. People with power get to tell the story because they worked harder than everyone else. They deserve to be at the top. The classroom silent. Some students nod, others exchange nervous glances. And then, Miss Carter smiles. All right, Mr. Sinclair, she says, let's test that theory. A deck of playing cards in her hand. She walks over to a trash bin at the front of the room and places it against the wall. Everyone, take a card, she instructs. No looking, hold it against your forehead. Confused students hesitating before doing as she says. Some laugh as they see each other's numbers. Low cards, high cards, everything in between. Ethan? He has an ace. Of course he does. Now, Miss Carter says, without moving, try to guess your own card based on how others react to you. A tense silence. Some students hesitate, looking around. A girl with a low number shrinks in her chair as people avoid eye contact. Ethan? He grins as students nod at him, treating him like royalty. All right, Miss Carter says. Who thinks they have a high card? Hands shoot up, including Ethan's. Who thinks they have a low one? Hesitant hands rise. Miss Carter nods. And why do you think that? The students hesitate. Finally, someone mutters, because of how people treated me. Exactly, Miss Carter says. Now, did anyone earn their card? Realization dawning across the room, except for Ethan, who is staring at Miss Carter, eyes narrowing. That was the first shot fired. But Ethan Sinclair? He wasn't about to lose a battle in his own kingdom. Ethan in his father's study that evening, pacing as he types furiously on his phone. Ethan had resources, influence, and a last name that carried weight. So if this teacher thought she could embarrass him, if she thought she could challenge the way he saw the world, she was about to learn exactly what happens when the powerful refuse to be questioned. The next day, Ms. Carter enters the classroom. But something's different. Students whisper, some avoid her gaze, others smirk. Her desk? Completely cleared out. Her books? Gone. Papers? Shredded. And on the whiteboard in bold letters, "Go back to where you belong," is Carter, standing still, unreadable. But her fingers tighten slightly on her leather bag. The tension in the air is suffocating. But she doesn't flinch. She could have walked out, reported it, demanded an apology. Instead, Ms. Carter calmly walking to the board, picking up a marker, and underneath the cruel message, she writes, "I belong right here." The class. Stunned silence. Ethan leans back in his chair, unimpressed. But behind the mask, he's rattled. The next move, a faculty meeting later that day. Headmaster Reynolds sits at the head of a long mahogany table. Across from him, Ms. Carter, and beside him, Richard Sinclair. This isn't acceptable, Richard says smoothly, setting down his pen. Our students should be focusing on academics, not political games. I agree, Ms. Carter says, but I didn't write that message. Your son's classmates did. Richard narrowing his eyes, a calculated pause. Then, do you have proof? Ms. Carter exhales slowly. She knows the game, knows the rules, and knows that in this world, people like Richard Sinclair never lose. I don't need proof, she says. I need change. Ethan outside, watching through the office window. His father is handling it, just like always. But for the first time, something feels off. Because this time, he doesn't just want to win, he wants to understand. The tension reaches a boil. The classroom the next day. Miss Carter walks in. The air is thick with unspoken words. Students shift in their seats. Before we start, she says, her voice steady, I have one question. She scans the room, eyes locking onto Ethan Sinclair. What are you so afraid of? Ethan, his smirk is gone. For the first time, he has no answer, because deep down, Ethan Sinclair had never truly been challenged until now. And that, my friends, is where we leave it, for now. If you're still watching, I have a question for you. Have you ever met someone who made you question everything you thought you knew? Drop it in the comments. And don't forget, subscribe, turn on notifications, and get ready, because this story, it's just getting started. Ethan Sinclair thought he'd seen every trick in the book. He thought power belonged to those who already had it. But what if someone like Miss Carter, was about to prove him wrong? What if the real test wasn't in a textbook, but out there, in a world where privilege doesn't guarantee success? The announcement, the classroom. Ms. Carter stands before the whiteboard, hands resting lightly on the desk. Her gaze sweeps over the students. The usual morning chatter dies down. Something in the air tells them, this isn't just another lesson. We're starting something new today, Ms. Carter begins, her voice measured but carrying weight. Something different, something real. Ethan, arms crossed, skepticism on full display. His smirk says it all. Whatever she's planning, he's ready to tear it apart. It's called the Real World Project, Ms. Carter continues. Over the next 4 weeks, you'll step outside of Kingston Academy and into the real world. Your task? To experience a life you know nothing about and survive. The class shifts uneasily. A few students exchange wary glances. This isn't just an essay or a book report. This is something else entirely. Each of you will be assigned a new identity, Miss Carter explains. A financial situation, a background, and for the next month you'll have to navigate life based on the resources given to you. The screen behind her lighting up. The words "Welcome to the real world" appear in bold, followed by categories. Low income, middle class, privileged, and underprivileged. Your goal isn't to win, she says, looking directly at Ethan. It's to learn. A glass bowl being placed on the desk. Inside, folded slips of paper, each holding a different fate. Your assignments are random, just like in life. You don't get to choose where you start. Ms. Carter says, one by one, students step up, unfolding their papers. Some sigh in relief, middle class, some groan, low income. And then, Ethan Sinclair staring down at his slip of paper. His smirk falters. Underprivileged, single-parent household, part-time job, no safety net. A ripple of murmurs across the classroom. This is Ethan Sinclair. A guy whose last name could buy his way out of anything, and now? He's playing life on hard mode. Ms. Carter, meeting his gaze with the faintest hint of a challenge. You okay, Mr. Sinclair? Ethan clenches his jaw. The room is waiting, watching. He could fight this. He could demand a redraw, but then she'd win. And Ethan Sinclair never loses. Fine, he mutters, folding the paper and stuffing it into his pocket. The reality check. The next morning, Ethan sits at his usual lunch table, but something's different. His phone buzzes. He checks his banking app, and what he sees makes his stomach drop. Balance, $27.43. A notification pops up. Rent, due in 3 days, $750. Ethan's staring at the screen, confused, frustrated. This isn't real, right? Just some stupid game? But then, his phone buzzes again. New work assignment. Gas station attendant, shift today at 4 p.m. The classroom later that day. Students compare notes. Some have allowances, small budgets, college funds. Others? Struggle is already sinking in. This is ridiculous, Ethan mutters under his breath. How does anyone expect me to do this? Welcome to the real world, a voice chimes in. Olivia Martinez, the quiet girl from the back of the class. She flips through her assignment. A single mother working 2 jobs. Some of us don't have a choice, she says, stuffing her assignment into her backpack. We live this every day. Ethan watches her go. For the first time, the weight of the project feels different. He isn't just playing pretend. This is personal for some of them. The gas station shift. Ethan standing behind the counter of a rundown gas station, wearing a name tag that reads, Ethan Cashier. The fluorescent lights flicker above him. A line of impatient customers waits as he fumbles with the register. Hurry up, kid! A gruff voice snaps. Ethan's hands shaking as he tries to count change. Behind him, the manager, a wiry man with tired eyes, leans against the wall. First time working a real job? The manager asks. Yeah, Ethan mutters. The manager chuckles, shaking his head. You'll learn. Ethan, hours later, wiping sweat from his forehead. His feet ache. His patience is gone, and when his shift finally ends, he checks his paycheck. Geez, total earned, $42.50. Ethan staring at the number. He does the math. Even if he worked double shifts, he wouldn't make enough for rent. Not even close. And for the first time in his life, Ethan Sinclair understood what it meant to feel powerless. The first crack the next morning. Ethan arrives at school, exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. He slumps into his chair. Miss Carter watches from the front, noting the change. How's the real world treating you, Mr. Sinclair? She asks. He stops himself, takes a deep breath, then looks up. Hard, he admits, really hard. Miss Carter giving a knowing nod. The lesson is setting in. But Ethan, he still has a long way to go. This is where things get real, my friends. If you've ever struggled, if you've ever had to fight just to keep your head above water, drop A in the comments. Because Ethan Sinclair, he's just now realizing what so many people live every single day. And don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because in the next episode, Ethan's journey is about to take an even darker turn. Ethan Sinclair thought he knew everything, that money and power could solve any problem. But after just 1 week in Ms. Carter's real-world project, something inside him was shifting. Because when you have nothing, no connections, no safety net, every choice matters, every failure stings. And for the first time, Ethan was afraid. The breaking point. Ethan at the gas station, staring at the clock. His shift is almost over. His stomach grumbles. He hasn't eaten since lunch because his budget is already stretched thin. He counts the seconds until freedom. Beep. Beep. The doors slide open and a man rushes in, drenched from the rain. He moves quickly, head low, grabbing snacks and stuffing them into his coat. Ethan's instincts scream that something is off. "Hey," Ethan calls out hesitantly. "You need help?" The man freezes. His hood shifts, revealing a weathered face, sunken eyes filled with desperation. He clutches a pack of granola bars like it's the last thing he'll ever eat. "Just let me go, man," the man mutters. Ethan, heart pounding, he glances at the security camera. He could call the manager, he could press the panic button, but then he remembers something. $27.43, rent due in 3 days, a paycheck that barely covers food. The man, gripping the granola bars like Ethan gripped his last paycheck. The realization hits like a freight train. This guy isn't some criminal, he's just desperate, like Ethan was starting to feel himself. "Take it," Ethan says suddenly, lowering his voice. "Just go, before my manager sees." The man stares at him, searching for some kind of trick. But Ethan's eyes, once filled with arrogance, are different now. The man gives a short nod and slips out the door into the rain. Beep. Beep. Ethan exhaling, running a hand through his damp hair. The old him would have called security. The new him? He wasn't sure what he was becoming. But for the first time, he understood. A harsh awakening. Ethan walking home in the rain. His clothes are soaked, his stomach empty. He takes a shortcut through a neighborhood he's never really noticed before. Old buildings, dimly lit streets, people huddled under awnings to escape the downpour. A familiar figure up ahead, Olivia Martinez. The girl who told him some people don't have a choice. She's outside a laundromat, stuffing wet clothes into a plastic bag. "Hey," Ethan calls out. Olivia turns, her expression unreadable. She's exhausted, just like he is. But there's something else. Resignation. Like this is just another night for her. "Sinclair?" she says, surprised. "What are you doing out here? Thought you'd be in some mansion, sipping hot cocoa." Ethan lets out a dry laugh. For once, he's not offended, just tired. And suddenly, the barrier between them doesn't feel so solid anymore. "Guess we're both in the real world now," he says. Olivia studies him, then gestures at his soaked clothes. "Come inside. Dry off before you get sick." Inside the laundromat, the hum of machines, the smell of detergent. Ethan rubs his hands together for warmth. Olivia hands him a dry hoodie. Oversize, a little faded. "You do this every night?" Ethan asks. "Not every night," Olivia shrugs. "Just when my mom works late and I have to handle laundry for my little brother." Ethan, staring. He never thought about things like this. Who did his laundry? Who made sure his clothes were ready every morning? He had no idea. But Olivia? Olivia had been doing this since she was 12. "You're different," Olivia says suddenly. "From before. What happened?" Ethan looks down, hands tightening on the hoodie. He could tell her about the gas station, the empty fridge, the feeling of helplessness clawing at his chest. But he just shakes his head. "Everything." Olivia nods, as if she understands. Because she does. She always has. The school fundraiser, Ethan's greatest test, Kingston Academy's grand ballroom, crystal chandeliers, men in suits, women in designer gowns, a charity fundraiser for the school's newest scholarship program. Ethan stands near the back, wearing a borrowed blazer. His father is in the center of the room, shaking hands, making promises. "We believe in opportunity," Mr. Sinclair says to a group of donors. "That's why our family has always supported Kingston's finest students." Ethan, jaw tightening. Opportunity? For who? He thinks of Marcus, the chess prodigy from the community center, who had to fight for every chance. Of Olivia, juggling school, work, and family. Of the man in the gas station, forced to steal just to eat. "Ethan," his father calls. "Come meet the board." Ethan, stepping forward, mask back on. The perfect son. The future leader. My son is excelling at Kingston, Mr. Sinclair brags. Tell them, Ethan, what's been the most enlightening lesson this year? Ethan swallows. His father expects him to say something rehearsed, about leadership, about legacy. But instead, that privilege is invisible, Ethan says slowly, voice steady. Until you lose it. Silence. The board members exchange looks. Mr. Sinclair's smile falters. Excuse me? His father asks. I thought I understood the world, Ethan continues, but the truth is I never had to work for anything. I never had to fight for a meal or a home or respect. But there are people who do, every single day. Olivia, standing near the entrance, listening, she smirks. He's actually doing it. Ethan? His father warns, voice low. I've seen it, Ethan says, louder now. I've lived it, and I'm telling you, this system is broken. We call this a fundraiser for opportunity? Then let's actually give someone a chance. Let's start with the kids who don't have a Kingston Academy to save them. A stunned silence. Then, unexpectedly, someone claps. Then another. And another. The room shifts. Ethan isn't sure if he's won this fight, but for the first time, he doesn't care. This is it. This is the moment where everything changes. Ethan Sinclair isn't the same person who walked into Ms. Carter's class weeks ago. He's seen the world with new eyes. And now, he's about to risk everything to prove it. If you've ever had to fight for something, if you've ever seen injustice firsthand, drop A in the comments. And don't forget, like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because in the next episode, Ethan Sinclair is about to go against everything he's ever known. Every hero has a secret, a past they don't talk about, a burden they carry alone. And for Miss Carter, the fearless teacher who changed Ethan Sinclair's life, that secret was about to be exposed. The fallout. Ethan faces the consequences. Kingston Academy's marble hallways, lined with old portraits of powerful men. Ethan walks in, heart pounding, knowing what's coming. The headmaster's office. Mr. Sinclair, Ethan's father, stands beside the headmaster, arms crossed, face unreadable. Do you have any idea what you've done? Mr. Sinclair's voice is ice. Ethan stands his ground. He knows exactly what he's done, and he's ready to face it. I told the truth, Ethan says. You humiliated this family, Mr. Sinclair snaps. Your little speech? It made us look weak, and weakness is not tolerated in this world. The headmaster clears his throat, looking uncomfortable. Your actions have caused considerable tension among the board, Ethan, he says. While we appreciate independent thought, undermining the institution in such a public forum is a problem? Ethan cuts in. Why? Because I didn't sugarcoat reality? Because I refused to pretend that Kingston's wealth equals merit? Mr. Sinclair's expression darkens. You are leaving Kingston Academy, he says. Effective immediately. Ethan blinks. He expected a punishment. Detention. A suspension maybe. But expulsion? You're serious, he breathes. Deadly, his father replies. What about my grades, my future? Your future is still in my hands, Mr. Sinclair says. You will be transferred to a school of my choosing, a place where you will be reminded of what it means to be a Sinclair. And as for that teacher, Ethan freezes. What about Miss Carter? His father smirks, the kind of smirk that says he's already won. She won't be a problem for much longer. Ethan's stomach drops. His father wasn't just coming for him. He was coming for her. A dark past resurfaces, Ethan storming through the halls, phone in hand. He dials frantically. Pick up! Pick up! A voicemail beep. Miss Carter, it's me. I need to talk to you. My father, he's coming for you. I don't know what he's planning, but you need to... The line cuts off. Ethan arriving at the community center. The doors are locked. No one is inside. No. He pounds on the door. Nothing. The center is dark. Empty. Olivia Martinez appearing down the street, hoodie pulled up against the wind. Ethan? She calls. What's going on? He turns to her, desperate. Miss Carter, have you seen her? Olivia hesitates, then she sighs. Come with me. The secret unraveled a rundown apartment complex on the edge of town. Olivia leads Ethan up the narrow stairs, stopping outside a door. She knocks 3 times in a specific pattern. The door creaks open. Miss Carter stands in the doorway, eyes tired but alert. The moment she sees Ethan, she knows. They found out, didn't they? She murmurs. Ethan nods, stepping inside. The apartment is small, barely furnished, nothing like the teacher he thought he knew. This wasn't someone living comfortably, this was someone hiding. "What's going on?" Ethan demands. "Why are you here? Why aren't you fighting this?" Ms. Carter exhales, rubbing her temples. Then she reaches into a drawer and pulls out an old newspaper clipping. She hands it to Ethan. He reads, "Whistleblower teacher exposes elite school corruption. Life in ruins." Ethan's breath catches. His hands tighten around the paper as he scans the article. Lena Carter, a former teacher at an elite New York private school, exposed illegal funding schemes benefiting wealthy students. She provided evidence of admissions fraud, bribery, and discrimination against lower-income applicants. The school retaliated. She lost her job. She was blacklisted from teaching. Her career was destroyed. Ethan, stunned, he looks up at Miss Carter, realization dawning. You risked everything to do the right thing." She nods, voice quiet, "And I lost everything because of it." Silence. The weight of the truth settles in the air. "So why are you still teaching?" Ethan asks. Ms. Carter smiles faintly. "Because kids like you exist. Because change starts somewhere. Even if I never get my life back, I made sure the truth was heard." The choice Ethan stands at the crossroads of his life. His father wants him to fall in line. The system expects him to shut up. But Ms. Carter fought for truth and lost everything. Now, it's his turn to decide what kind of person he wants to be. Ethan looking at Ms. Carter, determination hardening in his eyes. "You're not fighting alone anymore." Ms. Carter shakes her head. "Ethan, you don't understand. Your father, your family, they can bury me for good if they want to. You don't have to do this." But Ethan just smiles, that old arrogance now replaced with something else. Purpose. "Yes, I do." Ethan pulling out his phone. A message being typed. "You want the truth? Stay tuned. Something big is coming." Ethan hitting send. This isn't over, it's just getting started. Comment below. What would you do if you discovered a truth that could cost you everything? Would you fight or stay silent? Like, share, and subscribe, because in the next episode, Ethan Sinclair is about to go to war, and the truth? It's about to explode. The calm before the storm. Ethan sitting alone in his room. The city lights flickering outside. His father's words from their last conversation still echo in his head. "You are leaving Kingston Academy, effective immediately. Your future is still in my hands. As for that teacher, she won't be a problem for much longer." Ethan stares at his laptop. His fingers hover over the keyboard. The weight of the choice before him presses down like never before. He could stay silent, walk away, do what's expected. Or he could burn the entire system down. His phone buzzing. Olivia's name lights up the screen. "Whatever you're planning, do it fast," she says. "Your father made a call. Miss Carter's teaching license is under review. If we don't act now..." She's done. Ethan exhales sharply. His hands tighten into fists. Enough is enough. Then let's give them something they can't ignore. The message that shook the system. Ethan typing furiously. The screen flashes as he uploads something. A video? A file? A confession? We don't know yet. Post. "You've been lied to. I was lied to. But the truth? It's out now. Watch this before they try to bury it." Kingston Academy's students receiving a notification. One by one, phones light up across campus. Students in the hallways stop. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Dude, did you see this? Wait, is this real? Holy sh..." The faculty lounge. The headmaster, Mr. Sinclair, and a group of board members are in an emergency meeting. Their phones buzz. One of them plays the video on a large screen. On screen, Ethan's face appears, staring directly into the camera. His voice is steady, clear, unshaken. "I was born into privilege. My last name opens doors I haven't earned, and for a long time, I thought that's just how the world worked. Then I met Ms. Carter." Footage of Ms. Carter at the community center, clips of her teaching, of Marcus playing chess, of Jamal's engineering project. She showed me what real struggle looks like, what real talent looks like, and how a system built for people like me keeps people like them out. The screen shifts, documents appear. Official school records, emails, receipts, evidence. Kingston Academy claims to be a school of merit, a place where the best and brightest succeed. But the truth? It's rigged. Emails between board members discussing legacy priority for elite families. A list of blacklisted students who were denied scholarships based on income. A file labeled Carter termination, dated before the official review even started. They don't want you to know this. They don't want me to know this. But now, you all know. The screen goes black. Then, 5 words appear in bold white text. What will you do now? Chaos. The school erupts. The backlash. Mr. Sinclair strikes back. The Sinclair estate. Mr. Sinclair slams his phone down, fury flashing in his eyes. That ungrateful little... His advisors look nervous. One of them, an older man in a tailored suit, clears his throat. The video has gone viral. We're talking millions of views in the last 2 hours. News outlets are already picking it up. Mr. Sinclair clenches his jaw. Shut it down. Sir, we shut it down. Kingston Academy's IT department's scrambling. The school's internet is locked down, but it's too late. The students have already shared it. The world is watching. The uprising. When the students refuse to stay silent, the next morning, Kingston Academy's students gather outside. Signs, chants. A full-on protest is forming. We want answers. No more lies. Reinstate Miss Carter. The faculty watches from the windows, unsure of what to do. The headmaster paces in his office. Mr. Sinclair is already on the phone with legal teams. But the students? They aren't backing down. Olivia, standing on the steps with a megaphone. This isn't just about Ms. Carter. This is about all of us. The students who were never given a fair shot. The ones this school wrote off before they even had a chance. Are we going to let them win? No. Ethan pushes through the crowd, stepping onto the steps beside her. The students cheer as he takes the mic. This school was built to protect power, but today, we take it back. Take it back. The chant grows louder. Security moves in. Teachers try to break it up, but the students hold their ground. Kingston Academy is no longer theirs to control. Miss Carter's fate. A decision that changes everything inside the school. The headmaster and board members sit around a long table. Miss Carter stands before them, expression unreadable. We have no choice but to terminate your employment, the headmaster says stiffly. On what grounds? Miss Carter asks. Mr. Sinclair leans forward, smirking. You've caused unnecessary disruption to our institution. A beat. Silence. Then, the door bursts open. A flood of students storm inside, cameras recording. Olivia, Marcus, Jamal, all there. And at the front, Ethan Sinclair. Then you'll have to fire all of us too, gasps. The board scrambles. Mr. Sinclair's expression finally falters. He wasn't expecting this. Ms. Carter is the only teacher in this school who actually prepared us for the real world, Ethan says. And if you fire her, then Kingston Academy has proven it doesn't care about truth, it only cares about power. The headmaster shifts nervously. The cameras are rolling. The world is watching. There's no way out of this now. A long silence. Then, the headmaster clears his throat. Ms. Carter, your termination has been revoked. The room erupts. The students cheer. Ms. Carter blinks, stunned. For the first time in a long time, she realizes she won. Outside, the students flood the courtyard, celebrating. Ms. Carter walks up to Ethan, eyes filled with something unreadable. I told you, Ms. Carter. You're not fighting alone anymore. She smiled, shaking her head in disbelief. No, Ethan, you're not. And just like that, Kingston Academy would never be the same again. Comment below. Would you risk everything to expose the truth? Like, share, and subscribe because in the next episode, the fight isn't over. Ethan Sinclair just won round 1. But his father? He's not done yet. The homecoming, no one wanted Ethan stepping out of his car, his fists clenched at his sides. The protest at Kingston Academy had shaken the world. Ms. Carter had won. The school was forever changed. But there was one battle left to fight. His father was waiting. The front door looms before him. He steels himself before pushing it open. The moment he steps inside, smash! A glass tumbler shatters against the marble floor. Mr. Sinclair stands in the grand foyer, face flushed with rage, whiskey dripping from his fingers. You have embarrassed this family for the last time. Ethan doesn't flinch. He's past fear now. past playing the obedient son. "You mean I embarrassed you?" Ethan fires back. His father takes a slow, measured step forward, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Ethan laughs, shaking his head. "Oh, I know exactly what I've done. I tore the mask off this school. Off you." A tense silence stretches between them. Then, footsteps echo from the hallway. Mrs. Sinclair appears, her face pale, eyes darting between them. "Ethan," she says softly, "you should go to your room. Your father is upset." Ethan's jaw tightens. He's done being sent to his room like a child. "No, Mom?" "He's always upset when he doesn't get his way." She glances at her husband, her fingers twisting anxiously. "James, please." But Mr. Sinclair cuts her off, his voice dripping with authority. "Do not coddle him, Elizabeth. He needs to understand what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you." Ethan steps closer, locking eyes with his father. "And you need to understand that your money can't control me anymore." His father chuckles darkly, shaking his head. "Can't control you? You think this is about control?" His voice hardens, each word slicing like a blade. "You are nothing without this family, without me." Ethan's blood runs cold. The truth is finally out. The ultimatum. The Sinclair dining room, a place of power where deals are made over expensive wine. But tonight, it's a battlefield. Mr. Sinclair sits at the head of the long mahogany table. Ethan sits across from him. The air is thick with tension. "Here's how this works," Mr. Sinclair begins, swirling the whiskey in his glass. "You will release a statement. You will say that Miss Carter manipulated you, that you were misled, that you regret everything." Ethan doesn't blink. "And if I don't?" His father leans forward, voice calm, calculated. "Then you are no longer my son." Sinclair gasps, but Ethan barely reacts. He expected this. He knew this was coming. "You will lose everything," his father continues. "Your trust fund, your inheritance, your future." Ethan exhales slowly, then leans back in his chair, considering the weight of those words. He should be terrified, he should be panicking, but instead, he feels free. "You still don't get it, do you?" Ethan says, a slow smile creeping onto his face. "I don't want your future." His father's face darkens. "Don't be foolish, Ethan. You're throwing your life away for—" "What? A teacher?" "No," Ethan says, standing. "For myself." The breaking point. The moment of truth. Mr. Sinclair rises to his full height, towering over Ethan. For the first time, his composure cracks. Beneath the power, beneath the control, there's fear. "I built this empire for you," he hisses. "For you to win, not to play hero to a bunch of nobodies." Ethan shakes his head, stepping away. "That's the problem, Dad. You think people are only worth something if they win, if they have money. Power." He looks his father dead in the eye. "I'd rather lose everything than become you." For the first time in his life, James Sinclair is speechless. The aftermath, a new path. Ethan packing a bag in his room, the room he grew up in. The life he's leaving behind. Mrs. Sinclair appears in the doorway, her eyes glistening. "Ethan, you don't have to do this." He stops, looking at her. The mother who never fought back. The woman trapped in a world of expectations. "Neither do you, Mom." She swallows hard but says nothing. He gives her one last look before walking out the door. Ethan stepping outside, the cool night air wrapping around him. His phone buzzes. A message from Olivia. "We're waiting for you. The real work starts now." He looks up at the sky, takes a deep breath, and steps forward, leaving the Sinclair estate behind for good. Ethan Sinclair is no longer just a name. He is a force, and his fight? It's just beginning. Comment below. If you had to choose between privilege and doing what's right, which would you choose? Like, share, and subscribe, because Ethan's battle isn't over. His father isn't done fighting, and the war for real justice, it's just getting started. A new beginning. The chapter that changes everything. The sun rises over the city skyline, casting a golden glow over the streets below. A new day, a new beginning, 1 year later. A community center buzzing with energy. Children laugh as they run across the courtyard, young artists sketch murals on the walls, and students huddle over books, preparing for college applications. This wasn't just a school anymore, it was a movement. Inside, Ethan stands at the front of a classroom, sleeves rolled up, surrounded by students. He's explaining a concept, his voice animated, his presence commanding, not out of entitlement, but out of passion. "All right, break it down for me. What's the biggest flaw in this argument?" he asks, pointing to the board. Hands shoot up. Engagement. Thought. Critical thinking. This is what real education looks like. The door opens slightly, and Ms. Carter leans against the frame, watching with a proud smile. The once defiant, arrogant student now stood where she once did, not just teaching, but inspiring. The moment of reflection. A rooftop overlooking the city. Ethan and Ms. Carter sit side by side, watching the world move below them. "So," Ms. Carter says, smirking, "not the future your father planned for you, huh?" Ethan chuckles, shaking his head. "Not even close." A pause, then he turns to her, more serious now. "Thank you for seeing something in me when I didn't." Ms. Carter studies him for a moment before responding. "The truth is, Ethan, I didn't change you, you did that. I just gave you a push. Sometimes all it takes is one person to believe in you, for you to believe in yourself." A family divided, a future rebuilt. Ethan walking past the towering Sinclair estate. It looks the same, untouched by time. But this time, it's him who feels different. He doesn't stop. He doesn't look back. He's free now. He checks his phone. A message from Olivia pops up. "We got the funding. The new program launches next semester." A grin spreads across his face. His work isn't done. It's only just beginning. The final words. Ethan standing before a new group of students, the next generation ready to challenge the world. The same way he once was. You are more than what the world expects of you. You are more than your zip code, your last name, or the limits people try to place on you. And the moment you realize that, you'll be unstoppable. Fade out. But this isn't the end. This is just the beginning. What would you do if you had to choose between privilege and purpose? Drop a comment below, like, share, and subscribe, because this story doesn't end here. There are more battles to fight, more minds to awaken, and more change to create. Let's do it together.